Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. Glad to be with you here today, answering our community's questions on these Cabral House Calls that we do every single weekend, Saturdays and Sundays. On the Cabral Concept, it is a 7-day-a-week show. We try to keep the show to about 20 minutes or so, maybe just a little bit less. I found that just to be the ideal time for people to be able to fit in the show on a daily basis, because as I've always said, it's not about any one thing that you ever read. It's not any just one book or one article that will probably change your life forever, but it's actually the accumulation of knowledge. So on the house calls, it's really interesting because we get to hear from real people with real struggles, and we work through those issues in real time. So what I love to be able to do, and I'm opening up the document right now, is just to, for the very first time, no prep work, is just to read your questions. And then think back on 20 years of working with people and, what have I seen before? What have been the best outcomes? Where did we look that maybe you're not seeing right now that I can just maybe give you a little bit of a glean into working with now over 250,000 people. So again, very grateful to be able to have worked with that many people, my team and I. It's obviously not just me alone, but I do get to oversee the entire team. And that just gives me the knowledge of being able to read just so many thousands and thousands of labs every year. So without further ado, let's get into your questions. That's why we're here after all. So first question is coming in from, let's make sure this is the right date. Yes, it is, from Gary. Gary says, "Hi, Dr. Cabral. I perhaps have the stump Cabral of the day. I know that this will be 12 weeks until answered, and that's okay. A little context for me, chronic constipation, leaky gut, bacterial overgrowth, lots of gas and bloating. I did the FM detox, followed by the CBO Protocol with Mastic Gum because of C.Diff, and the Citricidal Drops, followed by the CBO finisher. I followed it to the T. It helped some, but definitely did not fix the issues. 5.5 years of this now. I've been working with your team, and they've been very helpful, but I think everyone is out of answers for what to do next. I know it's stress-based, been doing sauna, relaxation exercise, bineural beats, etc. Where do I go from here? P.S. Perhaps ileocecal valve dysfunction. Thank you, Gary." Yeah, so Gary, I can tell you've been doing this for a while, and it's because you kind of laid out exactly what you did, right? So you opened up the detox and drainage pathways with the Eco Life Functional Medicine Detox. Then you did the CBO Protocol with the Citricidal Drops because there was a lot going on. Amazing. And then you did the CBO Finisher, and you got some results, but not everything you wanted. So I get it. I totally understand. There's not a lot more after that, right? So the only thing that you could say is like, okay, well, let me look at parasites. So you'll probably want to do the Parasupport Protocol. I would definitely recommend that. But I agree that this is most likely stress-based, and that's because we've seen, it's got to be well over 100,000 people just with gut issues. So keep in mind, I've said that the only people where gut issues come back, it can come back taking antibiotics and things like that, but a lot of people relapse because of stress. And that stress, because some people's stress goes to their neck and shoulders and they get a headache and they get tension headaches and they get eye strain. And some people it goes to their gut. They get nervous, they get anxious, or just that's where stress goes to. Like that's their trigger. And so sometimes the gut microbiome is actually balanced. Like we'll rerun people's labs and like everything looks good in your labs. But of course, we don't just write you off like conventional medicine. We say, okay, right now, stress is a big trigger for you. So someone like yourself, we're using the whole de-stress protocol, but we're really focused on the stress portion, the rest portion, and that success mindset portion. So you'll want to work with life coach. I've found that a lot of people get really great results with either cognitive behavioral therapy or really I know it sounds strange, but hypnotism with neurolinguistic programming can be really helpful, or working on inner child-based things. I think it's called internal family systems, I think is the other one that I've mentioned before. All of those are really great. You need to do that deeper work. And then yes, bineural beats, all of that is amazing. Breath work is going to be almost number one for you. Breath work to start your day, not Wim Hof breathing, but breath work is and again, nothing against Wim Hof, but we don't want excitatory. We want calming the parasympathetic, right? So some type of box breathing, neurofeedback, biofeedback, all really, really great for you. We teach a lot of this in IHP. I mean, Gary, you'd be a candidate to do IHP even if you're not looking to become a health coach, just for all the knowledge base in there. You'll learn so much, and of course, it'll be great for you. What else? One more thing I want to recommend is just a bineural rhythm-based program. So using the sleep help support protocol at night with the adrenal soothe, with the full spectrum magnesium. And then I would honestly, I would just say, and you're not going to do this forever, you might do it for a week. If you have a shake, the DNS for breakfast, smoothie, DNS for lunch, smoothie, do you get cramping or bloating? And if the answer is no, and you only get it with the whole food, we need to look at strengthening your overall digestion as well. So we'll use daily digestive enzymes. We'll probably use betaine, HCl, and pepsin, with meals. We'll do a lot to help your digestive system out for you. So hopefully that's helpful. I have to give you my disclaimer, of course, that I'm not providing any medical advice, any medical cures, medical diagnosis, or medical treatment plans on this podcast of any kind. That would be crazy talk, and we don't do that. So we just help people from a natural health-based perspective. Okay, so Maria is up next. Maria says, is it true that kale and spinach cause kidney stones? Maria, the good news is that no, they alone cannot cause kidney stones. Do they have oxalates in them? Yes. But just because a food has oxalates does not mean that it leads to kidney stones, or that means half the world will be walking around with kidney stones, right? So there is a pre-existing issue. Then when you added more of an oxalate load, it overflows your rain barrel, and then you can end it with oxalate-based issues. But typically, someone is low in magnesium, low in B vitamins, like vitamin B6, and their gut is imbalanced. So the best thing that you could do is, if possible, run the Big Five. If not possible, run the starter kit. And that will actually look at your oxalate levels, which is pretty fantastic. And then we may temporarily, I'm not saying we don't, we may temporarily cut down on your high oxalate foods, spinach, rhubarb, beets, things like that. And then we'll gradually work it back in once we've helped to rebalance the body. So that's a great way to do it. And then in general, I wouldn't eat raw kale. I'd probably cook that for the most part. Cooking things is going to help for sure. And so that's just the basics. I have a bunch of podcasts on this. So you can go to stevencabral.com/podcasts. Type in oxalates, you'll get a bunch of shows on that. And then also type in plant paradox, and you'll get a full review of kind of lectins and oxalates as well. All right. And then if you ever can't find a show, just write in at cabralsupportgroup.com. Over 22,000 people now inside of that group, completely free. Ask questions, get answers. All right. So we're happy to help. Alexandra is up next. Hi, first, I'd like to say thank you. I've worked with one of your health coaches and the results are truly amazing. Happy to hear that, Alexandra. I'm writing to you today at our 2.5-year-old had split nights. Up for 2.5 hours and just can't sleep, mostly calm. At around 18 months old and lasted almost 8 weeks straight. We thought it was a sleep pressure thing and did all the things to try to fix it. But in the end, we just had to write it out, and I thought it was developmental. The split nights have now started back up again. My husband and I both work, and with having a 5-month-old, split nights with our 2.5-year-old are extremely exhausting. She had the flu, and we did have to give her Motrin to keep her comfortable. I usually let her ride out the fevers, but she was miserable. Anyways, looking for help. Thanks. Okay, so I do agree that there are developmental periods where children can be up, not 2 to 3 hours. I'm not saying that, but they can have some waking nights. So that's not abnormal. It's not uncommon, but for 8 weeks straight is, yeah, for sure. More than a week is for sure. So what am I recommending? Again, we're talking about a child, only 2.5 years old. So we have to be careful with anything that we do that's non-food based. If we're talking about nutritional supplements, what could we do? A little bit of omega-3, we could certainly do. A little bit of the calming magnesium, we could absolutely do. Just a little bit. Again, we're not talking about a lot. So a little bit of magnesium, a little bit of those omega-3s for calming the nervous system, but really looking at what could it be? Have you introduced a new food at lunch or later in the day, snack-wise or dinner-wise, that she might be reacted to inflammatory-wise later at night? That might be interesting to look at that. Does she wake up sweaty, feverish, hot, Interesting to look at. Could she be dropping into low blood sugar, hypoglycemia? Possible to look at that as well. Like, what's going on that's waking her up? We just need to start asking those questions. Hey, do you feel hungry? Do you wake up? Do you have an accelerated heart rate? Like, is your heart beating in your chest really fast? Do you feel it maybe in your throat? Do you wake up sweaty? Did you have a bad dream? So you're asking all these different type of questions, like gently, you're just kind of feeling it out with her, and you're finding out what's going on. And then sometimes what happens is, just like with adults, the body gets into these routines, these ruts and these habits, where then if it happens for a while, you just kind of get back into it. And it's not a good thing. Like, your body just starts waking up at 3 o'clock every morning. So what we typically do, 2.5 years is a little too young. We usually like to wait until at least 3. And we wouldn't do this for a long period of time. We would do a very small amount of liquid melatonin, very small. We're talking about like 0.25 to 0.5 milligrams. We would do that, the liquid one, before bed. And that would just help them for, let's say, like 3 to 5 days, get back to sleeping through the night. We could always add a little bit more if we needed to. And then we would just wean off over the next 3 to 5 days. I've done that with my daughters, especially like when traveling. So like, for example, when they were very young, we would go to Hawaii, and Hawaii is a 5-6 hour time change from the East Coast. And so we would do that for the first 3 days. I do it myself. And then that's it. And basically then they're back on they're on the normal Hawaii time, and then back to normal East Coast time. So again, these things can be used as they're supposed to be used, right? And that could be very helpful. So again, we have to find out what the underlying root cause is, but there's a lot to work through right there, right? So hopefully that gave you a good start. All right, looks like Jeff's up next. Jeff says, hi, Dr. Ball. Have you ever had an experience with high alkaline phosphate levels? My levels have been above the normal range, as high as 156. Currently 135 since May of 2022. I'm 44, active, in good shape, 5'10", 152. I was just going to say, okay. Yeah, because I work with blood work and this all the time. So I'm sure you're leaving out vital background. So sorry, I started TRT, Spinach, injections after about 10 years of taking Clomid around the same time as the high readings of the alkaline phosphate. Would that have anything to do with it? My PCP sent me to have an ultrasound that looked at my kidneys, liver, and gallbladder that came back normal. His suggestion to keep an eye on it, but I prefer to take action. Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. You are a real beacon of light for us. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. It's very, very kind of you. Let me see. I don't know if there's a podcast specifically on alkaline phosphatase. I can try to check real quick, but honestly, Michelle Blake is much better than I am inside of CabralSupportGroup.com. So I would certainly ask to see if she can find any shows in that. But what I would say is this. Whenever someone has higher levels of alkaline phosphatase, and people saying like, how do you get this checked? It's typically taken on your annual blood work. So like when you run a CBC, a lipid profile, your blood chemistry, they'll usually run your alkaline phosphatase as part of this. If it's ever low, again, I can't give you medical advice, but if it's ever low, it often just means like low protein intake or low zinc. That's one of the potential reasons. There can be others, viral issues, et cetera. But if it's high, it could be liver issues, kidney issues, just like your doctor was checking for sure. It could be leaky gut-based issues. It could be herpes virus issues. And there could be some bone issues as well. Okay, what do I typically see it though? So if it's high, I typically see it because you did a really hard workout the night before. You broke down a lot of muscle tissue, maybe even a little bit of bone, which has to be repaired, of course. And it could have been high. So that's important to look at that. Oftentimes though, someone is maybe a little bit underweight that's doing this too and not getting enough calories. And so there's more catabolic nature. To me, again, I don't know you, haven't seen you. You could be like super lean, but you're 5'10", 152. It's not a bad BMI. It's really not. But you might run on the more catabolic side. You're active. You're in good shape. It's my again, thought with never having met you, never saw any other part of your labs, is that you are running a little bit more catabolic, breaking down more tissue than actually building up. And if it wasn't for the TRT, you might be losing even more weight because TRT helps with protein synthesis, nitrogen retention, et cetera. So I think that's probably it. If you're ever running blood work, don't work out the night before. That's one. So you can just kind of take a look at your regular blood levels and make sure you're not on the brink of always losing weight rather maybe more like 152 to 155, like you're staying in a little bit more of an upward trajectory, okay? And then just make sure you're not overly fasting, because if you fast for a long period of time, there's gonna be muscle breakdown, bone breakdown. So I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting, but some people shouldn't overdo it, right? The more of that ectomorph body type. So hopefully that was helpful, Jeff. And I think that's probably it. But again, I can't give you, of course, a diagnosis. All right, let's see. Can we get another question? We absolutely can. Kelly's up next. Kelly says, hi, Dr. Well, I'm a registered dietitian, currently going through your IHP levels 1 and 2. It's been a great learning experience so far, and I'm very thankful. I had the virus back in November 2020, the original virus, the OG virus, she writes, and my main symptoms was loss of smell, along with severe headaches between my eyes and nose. Over the past 2 years, my smell has slowly returned, but it's not nearly the same as it was prior to losing it. Most people I know had a return of smell after a few weeks. I'm not too sure why it was so severe. Do you have any recommendations on how to return my smell back to normal, or maybe underlying causes as to why I lost it in the first place? Yeah, so a lot of work I've done on this, a lot of research on this, and it's already out there. So if you go to stevencabral.com/podcast, you scroll through the images at the top, and you click on latest virus updates. I haven't done one for a long time and I hope that I don't have to do any more for a long time. But please go. I've got a bunch of shows on loss of smell, loss of taste, burning toes, long COVID, long haulers, like whatever you want to call it. And I give all the different background. I talk about the mitochondria. I talk about inflammation. I talk about depletion of zinc and magnesium, which you may have as well. So I want you to get a full understanding and not just like a couple minute answer from me. So I probably have 4 or 5 podcasts just on this topic. If you listen to those, it won't take you more than an hour to go through all 5, because they're all about 20 minutes. So if you go through all of those and you look at the science that I present, because you're a nurse and you're an IHP, which is like amazing, right? Such a great background, and you're also an IHP. So you're going to be able to help, so many people from a natural health-based perspective with a, really nice background as well. So you're going to be able to figure it out. There's no doubt about it. I just want to make sure that you're rebuilding your deficiencies faster because nurses you're a registered dietitian. Again, amazing. So you have that great background that you're going to be help people with a higher level of, hopefully, nutrition and the dietetics and the supplementation, which I have no doubt that you are. And that's that. So yeah, you're going to be able to figure this out. I mean, I know it's taken you a little bit longer, but we want it to return to where it was before and maybe even better. So that's what we're looking at. All right. Thank you for writing in, Kelly. Thank you, everybody. We are going to be back tomorrow. We're answering more questions from our community. So don't miss it. Head on back. All previous podcasts are at stevencabral.com/podcast. I'll always have to answer your questions, but know that you can go there. You can use the search box. You can look for these answers in depth on their own solo shows. And if there wasn't one done on your topic, please do write in. I'd be happy to answer. All right, take care, and I'll talk with you tomorrow. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts. That will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.